Hey guys, what's going on? We talked about doing a video on the post that Jews had made on, the end of days. Would there be some other type of calamity that could engulf the Jewish people, the world, etc.? And he brought up the Shoah, he brought up the Holocaust, and such a horrible, horrific tragedy that has transpired within our time. I mean, we're talking about not like 70 something years ago, during World War II. 6 million Jews were killed, and it was nothing short but diabolical. It was a plan of connected with Samuel, the Satan, and how he was able to control Germany and its leader Hitler. Incredible that something like that has transpired during our time. He not only killed 6 million Jews, but I think it was something like 8 million or 9 million in total of people that he himself killed, not to mention all the people that died in battle. It's just, when we cannot even fathom when it comes to numbers and the horrific ways and the way people were killed. I mean, you read the prophecies and even the New Testament, Daniel, etc. It talks about a time that something like that has never occurred in the past and would never occur again. Could that be the Shoah? I tend to believe that it is so. I tend to believe that the Holocaust was that end time prophetic destruction of people. And clearly, you cannot be like an unbeliever and see that he targeted the Jewish people. I mean, the Nazis targeted the Jewish people, such a small people in the entire world. I mean, that doesn't make, outside of faith, belief in God, belief in the God of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, that does not make any sense. But the majority of people are aloof. They are tied up in the world. They have no sense of spirituality. They exist on a plane of animalistic nephesh, the nephesh of the animals. They do not have any higher type of consciousness, and the world around them, I get glimpses at times when I hear the sages talk about that the rabbi said, I don't want to see, let the Messiah come, but I don't want to see his coming. Meaning the generation of that time, I don't want to see it, because they talk about it will be the worst thing ever. That the climate will be so bad. And in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, it gives a lot of different details of how bad things will be. Book of Revelation, I want to say, is very similar to that. Book of Daniel, very similar to that. It's an apocalyptic book, and it gives a lot of details of things. And sometimes I get a glimpse of what that means. We may think of like zombies and wars, and we have some of that. But what I think is what we don't pay a lot of attention to. The subtleness. What's the subtleness? Something that I think Yeshua hinted towards. He said that in those days, he said, he's talking about the end of days, and he says that people will be given in marriage, and people will be, just going through normal life. What kind of a hint is that? How is that a hint of the end of days? Then it makes sense that the world is so busy with life, marriage, and, making money and working and hobbies and all kinds of, any kind of hobby and any kind of distraction you want to think there is. And who has time to reflect? Who has time to take on a cheshbon hanefesh, to take an accounting of their soul, to to reflect, to pray to God in our days. It's incredible, even for people who are spiritual. It's extremely difficult. And so I think that's one of the difficulties that we have today, how difficult it is to engage in spirituality. So the book of Daniel, first let me say a few words about him. The sages talk about, well, they put the book of Daniel not with the prophetic books, but with the ketuvim, the writings. And there's a machloket, a disagreement whether Daniel was he a Navi, was he a prophet, was he not a prophet, etc. And so they go through different sources and they say, well, he was in the exile, and prophecy is only in the land, so he wasn't a regular prophet. He wasn't a prophet like that, like Jeremiah, like Moses. He wasn't a prophet like that. Some say he wasn't a prophet at all, but that's not true. So, but others say, okay, he wasn't a regular prophet, but he had some type of prophetic experience, and he had some level of prophecy, which the lowest level of prophecy one can have, even outside of the land, is Ruach Kodesh, the Holy Spirit. He had some Holy Spirit. And it seems that he had even some more than that, because even with the Ruach Kodesh, he also had visions and dreams. But on top of this, they say that the reason why Daniel was so special is that he was a Talmid Chacham. He was a Torah scholar, a sage. And a sage is greater than a prophet. And he was able, not only did he have the spiritual power of Ruach Kodesh, which gave him spiritual clarity in connection to the Holy One, blessed be he was a Torah scholar and was able to see even more from the prophetic utterances that had came before him in the Torah, etc. He was able to see things in the future. This is how he was able to do this in the exile. The thing with all prophets is that they see clearly. They could see clearly as if it was going to happen to them tomorrow. But they don't know the details. They don't know the times. And hence the angel had to tell Daniel that, shut up the prophecy. So this is, go ahead and close it up. It's not for your time, but for the future. Daniel could have expected, what's the future? 100 years, 50 years, who knows? People don't think thousands of years later. I don't think that the prophets thought like that. But prophecy doesn't come from man. Prophecy comes from the Creator. And he is the one who carries the details and how and when, all those things. So we were talking about all these things, and we began to talk about the vision of Daniel that Nebuchadnezzar had of the image of the idol in its different metallic forms and what they represent, the four large kingdoms. There were other kingdoms, but these kingdoms are the specific kingdoms that matter, and that are based around Israel and world history. And that was Babylon. He was the head of gold. The prophecy of Daniel is able to explain that to him. Then comes the Media-Persia Empire, the Medes and the Persians. Then Greece, right, led by Alexander, and then the four generals, and the split of his kingdom into four empires. Then after the Greece, Greece, I think it spread the fastest, and it was probably the biggest empire the world has ever seen. And so Greece not only did that, but they also influenced the world through Hellenism, the Greek language, the Greek religion. So the Romans didn't really have a lot of these things for themselves. They absorbed the Greek language. I know they also spoke Latin and stuff, but Greek was the spoken language of the world at the time, much like English is today. So they spoke Greek. They believed in all the Greco-Roman, like the mythology of the gods. And so this spread Hellenism, philosophy, etc. Greek, and then that was passed on to Edom, Rome. Rome is the last empire, and there is no understanding. Daniel was not given its end, when its end would happen. It just know that it would happen, but we don't know when, how long it would take. This is something very interesting, and I saw in a commentary. I have to find that. I know I have it in my notes. It goes down. You go down through the idol all the way to the bottom, and from like the hip, from the legs down, like the reproduction area, all the way down to the feet. It's of iron, but when it gets down to the feet, it's mixed iron with clay. It says, and it doesn't, just like iron and clay doesn't mix, so it wouldn't mix, and this will make that last run of the empire very shaky. Okay, this is where it all could end. Okay, it doesn't mix. So there's a commentator, and I forget his name. He explains that the iron we know historically is Rome, and all the Western world, how it was influenced through Rome. After the political power ended for Rome, what kept Rome together from the very beginning was its acceptance of Christianity. And so all kingdoms that is predominantly Christian are part of the Roman Empire, part of the Empire of Edom. Okay, so Edom stretches out to the very end, but Edom has two parts. It has major Rome, which is the Western world, Christianity, and then the clay at the bottom that does not mix with the iron, with Edom, with Rome, is minor Edom, which is Ishmael. It is so interesting that if you look at history, you see that maybe 600 to 700 years later, Muhammad appears and the religion of the Ishmaelites begins. And so does their rule and run. The commentators, I shared plenty sources. They talk about this, that at the end of times, and we have seen that though both Rome and Ishmael has brought untold horrors, killings, persecution of the Jewish people. With Germany, you see what they did to the Jewish people. That's horrific. Ishmael has also persecuted the Jewish people since its inception and to this very day. While Rome has dropped the sword for quite some time now, dropped the sword in its specific persecution of the Jewish people, Ishmael has never stopped. There has been ceases of fire here and there, but it is a continued hatred, it is a continued animosity and war against the Jews. And so we spoke about that they don't intermingle. This is the thing that makes it brittle. At the end of time, according to the vision that Daniel had, there's a stone that was cut without hands. This is the kingdom of Hashem that smashes into the bottom of the idol in that area where Ishmael and Edom, they are clashing and they do not mix. The kingdom of heaven will burst onto the scene and destroy these empires. And whatever way destruction means, according to the biblical text. And so we talked about the wars of Gog and Magog. And we learned that, unlike we know from Christianity, that the war of Gog and Magog, everyone thinks that it's one war, is actually wars, 3 wars specifically. And we gave the details that the Hofetz Chaim, the holy Hofetz Chaim, he was able to prophesy, incredible, through Ruach HaKodesh, that he prophesied that there would be 2 more wars after World War I. He gave the exact timing, 40-something years after, and then after that, there would be another war, which would be the 3rd war. And he gave the exact timing, which is wild. He said that compared to World War One, World War II would make World War One look like child's play, and it was. And compared to World War II, World War III would make World War II child's play. But here's where it gets tricky. I think it was the Vilna Gaon who said that World War III would last minutes. I'm not exactly sure how many minutes. And that wouldn't make much sense when the Vilna Gaon said that. People were still kind of fighting with swords and on horseback and arrows. You know, even if you had some type of a gun, that doesn't make much sense. How can a war, a world war that has engulfed the entire world, last minutes? It doesn't make sense. In our day, in our technologically advanced day, it does make sense, because we have weapons that our ancestors could not imagine. And with one bomb, we could destroy a whole country. And if a few were fired, it could destroy the whole world. Some of the details of this war says that 1/3 of the world would be destroyed. That's crazy. I mean, that's wild. But the commentators also they say that this war does not have to appear in the physical realm. And this is where I just don't know. They talk about, like Rabbi Nachman talks about, that this war is a spiritual war. It's being fought as we speak. It's being fought within us. And that makes sense. All wars are fought within us first. We are a microcosm of the world. And there are wars waging in our bodies. Paul talks about that. But these things could definitely burst onto the scene, into the physical world, if left unrestrained and unchecked. And that is the scary part about that last war, that there's so much that we just don't know. I wanted to read a few details given by the Malbim, on the War of Gog and Magog. I think Scott asked a question about the rapture. Wanted me to give a few words about the rapture. The rapture is a Christian belief that the believers in Jesus will be taken away, flown up to heaven somehow, and hidden from the persecution to come. And this is a belief that it's very early. It's not an ancient belief of Christianity. It just happened. I think his name is Darby, William Darby or something like that, and it's within our time. But in Christianity, you don't really need sources. You can say whatever and quote a few verses, and whatever they mean to you, it fits. There's no such thing as a rapture. Nobody's being raptured away if there's a coming tribulation. The final war is spoken about. The blow meted out, the punishment will come upon the nations. And Israel would make it out of it. The nations will be paid back for its deeds. And when you think about the Holocaust, this is a scary thought. While Germany was specifically guilty, the Nazis, right? There was plenty of Germans who just, could they have done more? I mean, it's easier said than done. It's easy to talk when you're not in that position, because it could cost you your life. And it cost many Germans their lives. Many people just hushed and kind of believed that the Jews had it coming. It's pretty sick. But not only the Germans are to blame, but the world was aware with ample time what was transpiring, what was happening to the Jewish people, and what was happening to many people by Hitler. And they waited and waited and waited. There's many books written on this stuff. And so we all have culpability and have played a part in that massacre. And God in the prophecy says that the nations will be judged for its dealings with Israel throughout time. That's crazy. I mean, what can we do to be spared from the footsteps of the Messiah? Prayer, tshuva, deeds of kindness, study of Torah. Okay, so the Malbim, he's talking about the war of Gog and Magog. He says Gog, in this book, it talks about, it says Gog, the individual, may very well be the angelic prince assigned over the nations under his control. Okay. Then he goes on to explain that, Gog can be the angelic Tsar, the prince. But I've also read that Gog is a code for Armilus, the so-called anti-Messiah, antichrist. And it could be that the Tsar is ruling over him, and he's just a wicked person, like Haman or Hitler. May their memories be erased. So the Malbim says like this. In his commentary, he says, Ezekiel prophesied that in the end of days, all nations will wage war surrounding Jerusalem. The combatants on one side will be Egypt, Assyria, and Elam. These are the Ishmaelites. The combatants on the other side will be Meshech, Tubal, the princes of Edom, and the kings of the north. All of them will kill one another and fall amongst the fallen. So we know that for some time now, the West and the East have been in war. And it all surrounding Israel. America, Europe has fought against the Ishmaelites. This is Edom versus Ishmael. Exactly as the Bible has prophesied. 9/11, us going into Afghanistan, for whatever reason you may think, it still happened. And so there is animosity between them. Iran calls the US big Satan and Israel small Satan. So we have this animosity and this war going on between them. And just like as is prophesied, the Malbim continues. He says, our sages received the tradition that Gog will come against Jerusalem 3 times. Here in Ezekiel 38 and 39 are outlined the first 2 times. The third time is discussed in Zechariah 14. The identity of Gog and the land of Magog are unknown to us today. We only know what is written, that Gog is the prince of Meshech and Tubal. These are the names of the descendants of Japhet, the son of Noah. Okay, Japhet is where comes Greece, and are not circumcised. They will be aroused in the end of days after Israel has returned to the land of Israel, our times, and dwells there securely. They will then rise up against them because God will arouse them. The children of Edom destroyed the second temple, and Meshech and Tubal were with them. For the destroying Romans were at that time head of the nations, and afterwards all those nations were generically called Edom, because of their singular religion. In the end of days, God desires to gather these evil ones and the children of Ishmael together in one place, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, for Israel was exiled into both of their lands, and there suffered horrible persecutions. And so there you have it. This is what's going on. I mean, there's just there's so much to say, but it's crazy. The accuracy, to me, the accuracy is what's incredible. There's another prophecy, a detail given by the Vilna Gaon that says when Russian ships cross the Black Sea, then we know that the Messiah is near. This has happened a few times already. The atmosphere is kind of like ripe for these things to occur, and it's pretty crazy.